Hey, everybody. So you probably heard that there's an election coming up. We got an election coming up. And as with any election, but in particular this one, people can get pretty passionate about whom they're voting for, the party that they feel will be best serving the needs of this nation. And it's gotten to the point where you read articles that couples, families have a lot of internal tension because one member of the family is voting Republican, the other member of the family is voting Democrat. And as well, we're seeing a lot of things being posted on social media, articles, social media, people trying to influence others, giving their opinions on things. I almost got tempted into sharing something like that, but thought the better of it. I came across a very interesting piece by former Congressman Peter Deutsch. He used to be a congressman for the Democrat Party here in Hollywood and for many years. And I saw a piece that he wrote why he's voting Republican this go round. I thought that was intriguing among many of the things that I read. And I was almost tempted to send it to some people that I know who will be voting Democrat just to get their feedback on it. But then I looked at the comments on that article and the hate and the vitriol, the negativity, the passion, and I went, forget about it. I ain't doing this. Because the bottom line is, when it comes to a lot of these things, when it comes to the elections, you got to weigh it out. Are you really going to have an impact on somebody versus the likelihood of alienating them? And so that's why I said, forget it. I've learned over the years, keep my mouth shut. Don't take a particular side. You're just going to alienate and anger people. There was once at my Shabbat table where this actually cost Aisha Torah money, because we had some Shabbat guests, and we had one woman, it was years ago, I think she was going to vote for Obama at the time, and she made mention of that. And we had another guest who was a staunch Republican, and he was so bothered that this woman, who happens to volunteer a little bit for Aish, that because this woman who volunteers for Aish was going to vote against the party and the leader that he felt was in the best interest of Israel or America, he stopped donating to Aish. Yeah, it cost us thousands of dollars. He was a decent donor. But by association, that's why at my Shabbat table now, I don't allow politics to be spoken of. It's a no-win situation. It's going to cost us. At any rate, the Talmud does have something to say about this, believe it or not, when it comes to the appointment of leaders. And we came across this in Daf Yomi and in Bava Basra a couple weeks ago. There was a mention that of a pasuk, of a verse from the book of Chronicles. The Chronicles is not one of the more well-known books of the Tanakh. It's at the very end. It's really, like the word implies, Divrei Hayamim, Chronicles. It goes through history and such. At any rate, so there's a pasuk over there, a verse that the Talmud talks about. And it says, L'cha Hashem hamamlacha, to you God is leadership, kingship, v'hamit naseh l'chol rosh, and the leaders of whoever goes over different people, very different, that you, God, are the leader of everybody. So the Talmud, in very typical Talmudic fashion, parses it, changes it a little bit around the meaning to get a secondary midrashic meaning. And it says the idea of to you God is mamlacha, to you is kingship, as well as hamit naseh, whoever are leaders, l'kol rosh, for anybody. So based on this, it says Rav Chanan bar Rava says in the name of Rav, afilu reish garguta, even the person who's appointed over irrigation, the municipal worker, even that guy, mishmei mokmele, from heaven he is appointed. That there's this idea that any leader, no matter how insignificant they are, they're in charge of the water, the HOA leader, the person in charge of your homeowners association. Any position of leadership has God's hand behind it. Yeah, that's what Judaism says. So if it's even a guy who's in charge of the municipal waterworks, all the more so when it comes to the President of the United States of America, who has so much power and influence. So we have to realize, yes, you got to vote. I'm not, God forbid, saying don't vote. No way. You should vote. Definitely vote and be involved. But ultimately, like a lot of things in life, we have to recognize and realize that we make our efforts, but there's always the hand of God working in the background, making the appointments. And that's what Jewish tradition says. Appointments of leaders, no matter how big or how small they are, they ultimately come from the hands of God. So, bottom line as well, the thing we have to appreciate is we have to be tremendously thankful that we live in a time and a place where we get to vote. Let's face it, in most of history, that was not the case. In many, many countries in the world, we know this is not the case. You can't vote against Putin. I mean, you can, it'll get you nowhere. You try and protest against him, you're taking your life into your hands in that country or elsewhere. And we see that in so many other places, that you cannot go against the dictator, you can't go against the monarch, you can't go the strong man against the strong man in charge. Elections in Venezuela, meaningless. We are very, very fortunate to live in a time and live in a place where we get to vote, where we have a say. And yes, it's ultimately in God's hands, but we have a say in it, and we need to appreciate that and exercise that ability given to us in the land that we live in. Have a good Shabbat.